Hey, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. I am here today to talk about, what we do at Excel Data and, how you can build and operate great data products using data observability. I will try to, stay focused on what are, the challenges of observability and what people are trying to accomplish through, applying data observability in today's world and what are the different challenges of today's world in specific. So if you are trying to, at this point in time, if you're in any company, every business is today mandating, acceleration of innovation, improvements of efficiency, and reduction of risk. And these are very simple things to understand because every enterprise is today working in a hyper competitive market and they are trying to do their best, trying to outsmart their competitors by using every single tool in their repertoire to their advantage. And data is definitely one of those areas where people can extract a lot of efficiency and accelerate the innovation by just understanding what is going on really in their own business. And that's where we are today, in the world of business. If you think of, if you just took a little step back and found that what people are trying to accomplish with their data products, it essentially is a very clear situation where people are looking to extract value out of their data and they're trying to put data that they've collected over the past several years to different business use cases and trying to generate either revenue or to sort of build extremely important business modes. But what is the challenge? I was earlier, in one of the earlier sessions that I was just reflecting on what was going on at Gartner. And if you just looked at the number of vendors who were available, and if there was a data leader who had to make a choice of which are the different companies and which are the different technologies that we can implement solutions from, you would have been just surprised at the number of options that people have today. So what is going on is essentially a combination of two things. There's a lot of data sprawl, there's a lot of tech sprawl, and because of these two things, which are sort of J-hooks or exponential patterns of growth, what ends up happening is that two of the things are falling behind. One, the kind of talent that you have at your hand to build these extremely complex and successful data ecosystems, which will allow you to generate business and business success, and the amount of bad data that you produce. And it is very, very clear that if you don't have a good data product, then you won't be a successful company of the future. You may have been a very successful company of the past, but you certainly won't be a successful company of the future. And if you just looked at these two trends which are occurring, which is the exponential growth of data and the exponential growth of complexity of technology, and you compared it with the linear growth of where talent is, it's very, very clear that these are going to this difference is going to continuously increase, and it's a mathematical problem where most of the opportunity exists for companies like us. So let's look at what data products are today. Uber is a data product. An S&P, Insight is a data product because you're going to make your investment decisions based on the data that you have. Nobody is going to put in more money into a stock without analyzing what their data is. And for you to be able to make those assessments, you definitely need access to your data. Uber is a great consumer product, but please remember, every time that there is a concert or an event at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, Uber has to decide how many drivers should it send to that particular area, and how many people should sort of um, how many people who are looking to get a cab, you have to send accurate data, because if you're not, then it's actually a very, very different problem again. So what is then the problem? Why are we talking about this? The real thing is that all the enterprises and the enterprise leaders expect and hope that, data 99 2000, clear roads, great tracks, fastest car, winning all the races. But the real problem is what you see on the right. I mean, the data teams just don't have enough visibility into what is going on in their systems effectively, whether it is their data infrastructure, or whether it is the quality of data, or whether it is the business pipelines that were supposed to deliver data. None of these things are clear, especially in real time in operational terms, because the problem is not just about setting up the system one time, but the problem is of setting up the system and then running it over a period of time. Data ops is much more complex than just setting and putting up the systems together. So that is where data teams lack most of the visibility. Like I was mentioning earlier, there is essentially the data management landscape is extremely, complicated and very, very crowded. There are like several different tools in discovery, several different, and each of the business teams and technology teams, they have their own sets of preferences. And therefore, the way that they build and, deploy and operate these data products is going to be very, very different. But if you just took a step back, abstracted the problem, there needs to be a better way to be able to, go across this crowded data management landscape and to do a job effectively, much more effectively than what people are able to do today. And that is where the opportunity for something like an observability exists. There needs to be a better way. So, this has been the hypothesis of our company right from the beginning. When we started in 2018, we were seeing the advent of new cloud platforms, new data warehouses on the cloud, but the on-premise data infrastructure continues to be a very strong force and a gravitational center for a lot of data. And I think the clearest way to describe what are the challenges and what do you expect to solve is by saying, okay, all the data teams across the world, they're trying to scale data and analytics platforms, eliminate performance bottlenecks, and they want to get rid of the operational challenges. They also want to reduce the resource and cost overruns that happen pretty regularly due to bad actors or just because of ignorance and what it may cost. We just recently had a customer who spent $275,000 on a single data activity during the course of a day, which just completely blew up their entire budget for their cloud data warehousing options. These things are going to happen, more increasingly. This is not a one-time trend. This is going to be a continuous trend, and therefore, data leaders need to put the appropriate guardrail, proactive alerting mechanisms. And finally, as you're processing more data and making data available through these data products, the availability of data is not just enough. It has to be accurate and it has to be in time and with a very, very high degree of quality. And unless those things are there, it's going to be very difficult. Gartner earlier this year, they actually recognized that data observability has now become an essential part of that stack. It has been sort of recognized as the missing layer from the data stack and which needs actually attention. And data leaders will be well advised to start using operational improvements. And one of those options is, data observability itself. So, we talked about the landscape a little bit. The kind of things that, data observability can accomplish for a typical large scale enterprise is that it will allow them to run their, data systems at peak operational performance. That is the promise of data observability. Second, it'll also allow you to keep a handle on, how much money are you spending and, are you going to be vendor independent in the long term? Are there like data reliability issues or, can you make all your data interactions flawless? I think those are like really important steps. I don't think any enterprise will be able to sort of, go across all of these different layers through an extremely complex pipeline and make sure that they will be able to work, or have their pipelines produce the exact kind of data that you wanted without actually observing it. Now, this is a typical use case that there is a multitude of different data sources. There are different kinds of options for storage and compute. There are different kinds of options for consumption, and of course, the consumption is happening in different kinds of patterns. So all of this has to be recognized, and all of this complexity has to be sort of simplified so that data teams can focus on building what they do really well, which is building great data products, as opposed to wasting all their times on data products or the management and the operation of those data products. So what do we do? And what does the Data Observability Cloud really mean? We just announced the GA of the Data Observability Cloud earlier this week, and it's been an effort of several years of hard work, and just the recognition of the complexity that exists in this data ecosystem, working with several customers and large partners. And today we are at a stage where we have the ability to go and integrate with on-premise large data sources, cloud integrations with the most modern and ISV producers, or different kinds of technologies that people are choosing on the cloud, but also at a very comprehensive, multiple or multi-dimensional way, which is that you have the tools, the right set of operational metrics available for operators who can prevent outages and achieve SLAs in the way that they imagine and they wanted, scale the data processing, and optimize resources and costs. All of these problems exist today in the enterprise, regardless of whether you're on a hybrid architecture or whether you're on a cloud-based architecture. The data practitioners, they get a lot more visibility and trust and reliability in their data, because they need to know that the data that they're consuming is the data that they were actually looking for and is appropriate for their consumption use cases. And finally, business is also expressing their business logic as just as part of abstractions around the business logic and the business processes that they want to build data products for, and that also needs to be managed, and it has to have more throughput, and the cost and the benefits have to be aligned. So from a differentiation perspective, we've all, like I said, in the previous slide, we've been cloud native. We support multiple clouds. We sort of, capable of supporting a hybrid journey from the customer. And, unlike many other niche technology providers, Accelerator Cloud is really multidimensional. It's completely different from many other vendors that you will hear about today. And the reason that we are able to do this is because, we synthesize signals from multiple layers, consolidate and analyze them, deliver superior performance and business ROI from data. Um, and we're just focused on the large enterprises with severe amounts of complexity in their data. Although, smaller companies can also benefit from individual layers, given or dependent on where their problems are most acute. It could be a cost problem, it could be just a data quality problem, or it may be a problem that you just don't have enough data engineers in your ecosystem. So we're out and committed to solving these problems. Just a recap of where we are from a company perspective. We've raised a couple of rounds of funding. We are at Series B right now, with some of the best, investors backing us. And what we basically are selling is the offering is essentially data observability as a platform on your premise, or data observability cloud, which you can sign up as a service. Most of our leadership team comes from extremely data centric background. We made sure that there's like a domain empathy for the kind of challenges that people face. And our customers include some of the best and the largest companies in the world, including some of the Fortune 50 customers. um, so that's where we are from a company standpoint. I do want to talk about one of the use cases, and maybe another one if time permits. um, PhonePe is a Walmart subsidiary, and they essentially process close to about, this year they're on course to processing about $1 trillion on their platform in a peer-to-peer low-value transaction standpoint. And the kind of challenges that they had were very different from the kind of challenges that many other customers or enterprises would have. And the key thing that they were trying to solve, was essentially scaling their OLTP, OLAP, and streaming systems. It was very difficult for them to scale. When we started working with them, it was pretty difficult for them to get operational insights and visibility into the kind of systems that they were running. They were essentially focused on serving a large customer base. As of now, they serve about 350 million daily active users. Actually, the overall base is about 350 million users. Their daily active users would be anywhere between 120 and 180 million. On peak days, it goes up to about 275 million users. Um, when we started working with them, they probably had about 10,000 cores from a processing point of view, maybe a little more. At this point in time, they definitely have over 100,000 to about 250,000, somewhere in that range, dynamically allocated cores. They've completely been on open source forever, because there's no platform that will satisfy the kind of scaling challenges and needs that they have. And we've actually helped them grow through this phase of hypergrowth. So at this point in time, they have approximately 2,000 nodes on a single data center, which is replicated across in a live environment. So they've effectively grown to about 4,000 customers. Sorry, 4,000 nodes. And the way that it works for them is that they have all different kinds of challenges, which include CDC, live streaming of data, immediate settlement from a transaction perspective. And we've managed to scale their OLTP systems, streaming systems, and OLAP systems. Now, please note, any financial customer, they will essentially have very stringent requirements from the reporting perspective. PhonePe is also a merchant platform because a lot of merchants today in India accept payment via PhonePe. So they're also looking at their reconciliation and daily understanding of their business trends through the reports that they get. They are looking to sort of do a lot more reporting with their merchants and giving them advice as to how should they manage their business. What it also has given them the ability through the consistent collection of data is to sort of venture into newer business lines, which includes wealth management and providing insurance, which again, huge businesses in effect. So the effect of data observability is, the first and foremost, is that they have stability across all of these different variety of systems that they run. And it's really important at their scale, because an hour of outage would literally mean losing about $100 million in transactions, and therefore it's fairly important for them. So that was sort of the use case that I wanted to cover with you guys today. And if you would like to get started, then here is the link. Just copy the QR code, scan it, and ask for a trial in our environment today. And you can get started if you're a person or a team which is facing problems with your data systems, infrastructure, data reliability, or quality. Then feel free to go ahead and start using our systems today. So,
Rohit, we do have one question on the Q&A board. Did you want to take a quick look and see if you wanted to answer that?
sure. The question is, do you consider data products as the ones driven by advanced analytics? Could data products be simple standalone things such as master data or dashboards? Absolutely, they are. You have to actually think of every single thing, every interaction that happens with data as a data product. Complex customers, they use 50, 100 dashboards every single day, and those dashboards are powered by the underlying data, which is sitting in the systems that support them. So absolutely, the dashboards are also products. At one of our customers, this was way back, very early in our journey when we used to work with GE. GE had 2,500 people working on custom dashboards, and each of their those 2,500 people were operationally dependent on getting data that they would get from these dashboards. And unless that data was available in time, they could not get by their day-to-day work. So what we think about, data products could mean very different things to very different consumer sets. I know of other use cases where, people who are selling cell phone plans in telecom stores or telco stores, they're actually getting their daily performance reports or dashboards. But just imagine, a large telco in the US has probably thousands of stores, and those thousands of stores employ hundreds of probably tens of thousands of customer service reps. And all of those reps, they get to see their reports or their performance report through the dashboard. So absolutely, it's a data product.
Thanks very much.
Sounds very good. I'm going to be around here if there are more questions, and then you can definitely visit us at our booth.
Rohit, do you want to hang out here, or do you want me to close this and then just direct people over to the booth?
Yeah, sure. We can hang up here, and I'll be around at the booth, or some of my colleagues will for sure be.
Why don't we give it another 2-3 minutes here, and then we'll close it up.
Sure.
Looks like we got another question.
Yeah, the question is from Shane. We run various data pipelines via Jenkins and custom applications that move data from various sources to BigQuery. We have tooling which can visually monitor these pipelines and send alerts based on various conditions. Absolutely. Yes, you have implemented parts of data observability. Um, what you're right now monitoring is essentially, the migration of data. Uh, and that migration of data could essentially mean that you're lifting and shifting data from some of the on-premise transactional databases or from other sources into BigQuery. So absolutely, you've implemented one layer of pipeline monitoring, and yes, you could implement Accelerator in an environment like this, because when you're moving data, the first and the foremost thing, or the immediate thing that you will need over there is essentially just reconciliation of data. So when you're moving data from a different source, or when you're trying to move data from one of the sources of data, which is the source system, and you try to move it into the sink, which is in this case BigQuery, you might want to do reconciliation checks. Did you receive equal number of events on the BigQuery side? Did you receive it at the quality levels that you expected? And is this data certified? And who's certifying this over a period of time? So are there like automated alerts and matrices which are available for people to take a look at? And can they act on it if the BigQuery reconciliation system is not working the way that you expected it to? And the answer is obviously yes. We will fit into that ecosystem very, very well.
Thanks for the question, Shane. It's Rohit. Looks like that probably wraps up our questions. I'm going to go ahead and end the session, but if anyone wants to speak further with Rohit and Excel Data, please feel free to visit their booth. And we'll be starting our main room session in just a few minutes, and we'll wrap things up and bring it all back together. Thank you very much for attending this.
Sounds very good. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rohit.